So the local that we perceive, we need to examine. It is delivered from the local or the education we received. So the next slide, as I mentioned, I would draw references from literature. He is a very famous Kenyan author, and you might have heard of him. So I'm going to tell a bit about him. He refused the way the colonial rulers were viewing the literature in Kenya. So as it happens everywhere in the colonial countries, the mainstream literature mainly follows the structure of the Eurocentric structure. So he said, and I wrote it down so that you can read loud. He warns that writing in English, French, or Portuguese traps African literature in a neo-colonial framework and alienates writer from their cultural roots. Please mind this word, neo-colonial framework, because we are going to judge ourselves if we are in that framework too. So this is an African poet, and now let's talk about our very own poet, Josimuddin. At his time, by the mainstream poets and the authors, he was not that much the mainstream. And he's the one who first revolutionized Bengali literature by shifting its focus from urban elites to the rural common folk. And we need to think what our focus is. Our focus is also the urban elites. It's not the rural folks. And Rabindranath Tagore, he coined him as Pallikavi, which Josimuddin was not happy about, because he said what he was writing, those are the mainstream writing, because the Pali issues are our own and the other things were not. So he refused to have that frame that I'm not a Pallikavi, I'm the mainstream poet. So I'm trying to make you guys aware of what other disciplines are doing, because it's all interconnected. When we were studying modern architecture, I really felt lost, because modern movement, what others were doing in literature and music and everything, it was not that much connected in our curriculum. We really learned about modern architecture, the form, we were mesmerized, but what others were doing with the philosophy, we didn't really get it. So next, I want to share what education is doing. She is a very famous educator, and she was the first native Canadian who did PhD in education. And what she did, after her research, look how the framework shifted. Before her work, they tried to get indigenous students into the regular education system, and of course it wasn't working that well. Later, after her work, the thing shifted, the question shifted. How can indigenous knowledge contribute to and improve education for all learners? So my point is how the knowledge of our local educate us, build the main body of knowledge body. So let's go and see one more external references. And this is computation. And our another guest will be talking about AI. And this decolonization is also discussed in AI and computation. And look at the title, A Brief Introduction to Decolonial Computing. Even in computing, although computing itself is a colonial, what do I say? It's a colonial measure. So according to the researchers there, they're saying that the technological problems shouldn't come from the West, it should be coming from the user. So all the AI tools we are using, they were generated by the West, they were fabricated by the West, and we are just the end user. So the same thing in the computer reputation, in literature, in education, all these 4 examples I just shared, they're all talking about the local. What the local is. Is it the knowledge from the others, or it is the knowledge from the Eurocentric elite that we all belong to? So look at this sentence. David Butcher, he said, colonization evolved not into decolonization, but neo-colonialism because of the complicity of native bourgeois elites. So we all know the colonial countries left. We are still serving the colonial powers. I think we all agree we are serving the colonial powers, and that works because the native bourgeois elites serve those purposes. My question is, us architects, are we playing that role, the bourgeois elites? That is the serious question I want to make you guys think about. So let's talk about how architects can be bourgeois elites. Look at what they say. Architects are not inherently agents of neocolonialization, but the profession's economic structure and aesthetic imports often perpetuate it. When designers enforce Western-centric urban planning, rely on exploitative supply chains, or prioritize foreign prestige over local cultural context, they participate in neo-colonial practices. So if we all think deeply, aren't we, most of us, doing the same thing? I think most of us doing the same thing because we were trained from their education and the framework they gave us, and maybe we are serving that elite that was mentioned in the earlier slide. So I began with the study of architecture curriculum. So to them, the specialized person, they say conventional architectural pedagogies are neo-colonial, because neo-colonial system, there is a periphery nations and there is the core nations. Obviously, core nations are US, Canada, all the high GDP countries, and the periphery nations are us. So how is this working? So deeply rooted in Eurocentric principles, conventional pedagogies are agents of core nations and exploits preferred peripheral nations. They often marginalize non-Western perspectives and fail to integrate social equity, environmental sustainability, and cultural diversity. Isn't it all we're looking for? Because we want sustainability, we want equity, social equity, but we were trained with the Eurocentric education, and that made us serve the neoclassical purpose. Sorry, neocolonial purpose. So, role of architects trapped in neocolonial framework. We were trained and we are all trying to master all the tools they provided, AutoCAD, BIM, all those things we learned and we've been using and we are going to use for coming years. So in that sense, we are serving that role. So this is the summary of the local I was looking for. So the local, I believe I have made it clear what the local truly is. It's not what the Eurocentric education taught us, but what the locals can produce for themselves. So this is a small project I did, and there's only 3 slides. Through this project, I wanted to explore the town local. So it's a village dormitory in Brahmanbaria. So from my understanding, my training, this is the approach I took. A humble, local material built project that will blend. And let me go to the next slide. So this is the dormitory room inside. So the word humble, what we learned, I applied. And then after they started using the project, let's see how it goes. Look at this single window. Do you think that's a curtain? This was a window. Our knowledge, our aim, provided for their life. Look how they use. The user, he put a corrugated sheet because his sense of privacy did not match with mine. So the knowledge I had about their privacy, it really didn't work in the post-occupancy survey. Look at this dorm. There were 4 dorm rooms. One was designed and decorated for them. The intention was the other people will donate and decorate the way the original one was decorated. But look the way it is decorated, how they treated the space. Maybe from our understanding, this is not that great, not that flashy, but this is the way they want. I was trying to add another image. I don't want to mention the name of the architect and the project. He is the most famous architect in our nation. He passed away. And the project is a very famous university campus dormitory, a women dormitory. And the image is similarly like that. The window panes were painted green. The privacy, the architect envisioned didn't really comply with the one they were using the space. So what went wrong? We designed something, we perceive something, and that perception is made from the Eurocentric education. And our Eurocentric education is top-down approach. We don't really invite or we don't really include the ones who will be using it. So let's ask the same question. What went wrong? The curriculum failed to address these questions. Who defines architectural problems? Mostly us. We prepare the program. We think what is good for them, what is not good for them. We think the scale we know that is good for them. We know that some fabrics are good for them, but they don't think, they may think otherwise. So whose interests are served? Mostly the authority, they're funding the project. It's not the end user. So these are questions pretty much always asked in decolonization and decolonial discourse. So these were the problems. So now let's go into the architecture curriculum. So these are 2 missions, 2 architecture schools missions. One is a famous public university in Bangladesh. The other is a famous private university in Bangladesh. Look at their missions. Their socioeconomic, local landscape, these words are there in their mission, right? And so the green colors are related to local and the red colors are related to global. So both of them, local and global, are vividly printed in their missions. But do they really teach us the word local that I just have shared with you? Because they try to sound humble, they try to sound ethical, but they don't deliver the way that should have been done. And because they were originated from 2 US universities. One is Texas A&M, the other one is Virginia Tech. So once they were originated elsewhere, it's really difficult for them to make us really think what the local is. So the last slide, I will show you the existing curriculum. Through this slide, I want to share what can be done. So there are 47 courses, and the green ones, they have the potential to input all the things I have been discussed so far. We have 10 design studios in average for every architecture school. We have other sectionals. We have history courses. As Imon sir mentioned, here there are 7 courses. Only 2 were dedicated to, one is for Bengal and one is for India. So Imon sir's presentation pretty much shows that we are not doing justice.
Is architect Ashik Bhaskar Mannan, Senior Associate Professor, Department of Architecture, American International University.